and welcome to the CUInsight Network podcast. My name is Lauren Culp. I'm the publisher and CEO at CUInsight.com, and it's my job on this show to have conversations with the thought leaders who support the credit union community. Together, we get to identify some of those issues that affect credit unions and have a discussion on all of the best practices that exist so that we can learn from one another and improve our credit unions. I'm really excited about today's show. My guest today is Greg Mesack, the Senior Vice President of Government Affairs at NAFCU. Such amazing work over there. Greg, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. Now, we always like to kick off the show a little differently. I know most folks in credit unions didn't grow up thinking that that's where they would work someday. Most kids don't really start out thinking, oh, I'm going to work in credit unions. What did you want to be growing up?
You know, I've been thinking about that for a couple minutes now, and I got to admit, this is probably not the greatest thing you can say about yourself. I don't really think I had a real plan as to what I wanted to be when I grew up. I just kind of let life lead me where it leads me, and it's just kind of been following kind of like you're floating down a river. I just kind of followed the river, and it's been awesome. I've had a great life, and I've ended up really an amazing job working at NAFCU. But when I was growing up, I just kind of just wanted to have fun and kind of see where life took me.
Well, it has been an amazing journey.
It really
all
has.
The way to your current role as Senior Vice President of Government Affairs at NAFCU. What was that journey like? What brought you to this point then? So just sort of following that path.
Well, I think in some ways that path kind of took me here because, a typical kid in college, I didn't have any real goals. I was a double major in political science and history in college. In the second semester of my senior year, one of my professors kind of tapped me on the shoulder. He's like, Greg, what jobs have you applied for? And I was like, applied for jobs? What are you talking about? You're crazy, man. And he's like, no, seriously, like, where have you applied? And I was like, I haven't applied anywhere. And so God bless him. He looked at me and said, you're not going to graduate from my class until you call this former student of mine who's in charge of interns for a congressman. Because he was my political science professor. Clearly, I had demonstrated love for this sort of world. And so it turns out she was in charge of interns for my hometown congressman from Michigan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where kind of fate kind of pushes you in a certain direction. And so I called her up. She's like, well, the professor says great things about you. You're from our congressional district. You've got an internship. And so a week after I graduated, I packed everything I knew to a truck, drove out to D.C. not knowing a soul, and started interning for my hometown congressman. And I fell in love with politics. I fell in love with Capitol Hill. It was just awesome. It's kind of, that feeling when you found the right place at the right time. Well, that was me on Capitol Hill. And that kind of started me down to the path to NAFCU because I worked on Capitol Hill for a number of years. And the funny thing about Capitol Hill, they take a bunch of 20-somethings and they just put them in jobs. And you're like, okay, you just graduated from college, 10 months ago. You're now our specialist in healthcare. You're our specialist in financial services. You really know nothing about them, but the people,
right.
If you're drawn to that, you're a quick learner. You can pick things up quickly. And so I was in those tracks and I was put in charge of financial services for a congressman who was pretty senior on the House Financial Services Committee. And I did that for a number of years and worked on Capitol Hill until I then took a very DC thing. I left Capitol Hill and became a lobbyist. And so I worked for a banking trade association. Interestingly, the person who hired me for my very first job off Capitol Hill was a gentleman named Dan Berger, who's now the CEO of NAFCU. So he and I worked together for a couple of years at a different trade association. He came to NAFCU. I went to a multi-client lobbying for almost 14 years. And then when my predecessor, Kerry Hunt, left here, I'd kind of had that itch, been in the job for 14 years. Then I reached out to Dan and we'd worked together before. And he's like, well, go ahead and apply. Let's see where this takes us. And last year I got hired at NAFCU and I'm super excited. I mean, I think I've landed in one of the best jobs in DC coming here now.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of the overly long story of how I kind of stumbled my way into. I keep stumbling into really good things in life. I stumbled in one of the best jobs you can find.
Seems like not having a plan has really paid off for you.
It does, and it drives my wife batty. I think we're such a good couple because she is the exact opposite of me. I don't think she's ever done anything that isn't planned, and I don't do anything that is planned. One of my favorite stories was we were, this is a bit of a non sequitur, but we were taking a vacation to Ireland a while back. And she's like, all right, you pick Ireland, you plan it. And so about 3 weeks before we're supposed to leave, she's like, what's the plan? I was like, well, I got the rental car. I got the airline tickets and the rental car. She's like, what else? I'm like, what do you mean, what else? We're going to go to Ireland. And her head about exploded at that point. Within a week, we had this 3-ring binder with like sections by day as to places we're going, hotel reservations, restaurant reservations. Because my thing was we're just going to go to Ireland and hang out and have fun. And that was not her idea of fun at all.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like a good partnership.
It is. It's a great partnership.
So as you kind of transitioned into NAFCU, most folks in credit unions know exactly who NAFCU is and know the great work you all do. But what would be that elevator pitch you would give someone who maybe didn't know about what NAFCU does and where you really add value for credit unions?
Yeah, when I talk to people about what NAFCU does, is I like to say we're the voice for credit unions in Washington, D.C. And that means we're out here every day interacting with all the different levels of government, all the different policymakers, trying to make sure that credit unions have the ability to grow and serve their members. Because at NAFCU, we do this because we believe that credit unions are the best source of financial services for Main Street America. And my job and the job of our team at NAFCU is to make sure that credit unions can do that, to make sure that credit unions are able to go out, serve Main Street America, able to grow, able to prosper, and don't have the heavy hand of government coming in interfering with that ability. And so we're out there trying to do proactive things, trying to reduce regulations, trying to find new opportunities to grow, and also defensively, when there's a bad idea, bad legislation, to make sure that we go out there and do our job to keep that from happening and keep that from interfering from credit unions, because credit unions are out there every day trying to help everyday Americans.
Well, speaking of potential bad legislation, I've been hearing a lot about the Credit Union Competition Act of 2022, the CCCA, I think is what it's abbreviated as, or CUCA.
So it's actually the Credit Card Competition Act.
Oh, thank you. Credit Card Competition Act. Yep.
Yep. And what that is, one of those things where you want to talk about the core of what advocacy is. We have a system out there for credit cards, and you've got multiple sides to that. And our job is to go out there and help the issuer side of the credit unions, because the way everyone has a credit card, and most Americans, everyone in the world really knows who has a credit card, you have this great value in a credit card. You can go out and you go online and apply, and you can get a credit card for free. If you pay your credit card off every month, it costs you nothing. But when you use it, you have a tremendous package of value. It processed in seconds. You know that if that credit card's stolen and someone has fraudulent charges, you're not on the hook. You're indemnified for all that fraud. A lot of times, if you go out there and you buy like a bum TV and the retailer doesn't, make you whole, the credit card company will make you whole. You have this amazing thing. A lot of times you can earn rewards even. And so you're getting every month a free 30-day loan that you can use, so you can go out and purchase. So you want to walk into Best Buy and buy that TV. A lot of people might not have $2,000 in cash on them, but they have their credit card. They swipe that credit card. They know it's safe. They know it's secure, and it allows them to walk out that door with that television. But that costs money. Maintaining that sort of system costs money, and someone has to pay for it. And the way we've set it up in America is the consumer's not paying for it. The people who benefit the most from it's actually the merchants. And so the system is, on every time you swipe that credit card, the merchant pays a very small fee, because that credit card benefits the merchant actually more than even benefits the consumers. Tons of data out there showing people purchase more. Merchants are actually made whole too. You swipe that card, walk out the door with that TV, and the merchant knows they're going to get paid. They know that they're always going to get the money. It's going to show up on time. They don't have to worry about cash management. They don't have to worry about fake bounce checks or anything like that. They're paid immediately. And in fact, a lot of merchants now don't even take cash. There's places all over the country where more and more businesses are saying, we're totally no cash. We only take credit cards or debit cards. But for that benefit, the merchant pays a small fee. Well, the merchants are sitting there saying, big Lowe's, Home Depot, trying to find a way to goose the bottom line, bump those quarterly earnings a little bit. Then they think to themselves, what if we can push that cost to maintain that system off on the consumers? Now, right now, big companies are paying a lot of money to maintain one of the fastest, most efficient payment networks in the world, but they don't want to pay for it anymore. So they're going to try to force credit unions and credit card holders to pay for it. And so at NAFCU, we're out there fighting that, because we're saying that's unfair. Credit unions right now, if you take all this interchange income that credit unions get for, when the merchant pays that fee, it's paid over to the credit union or the bank that issues the credit card. Well, that's actually going to punish our members. Right now, credit unions take that money, because when you swipe that credit card and there's fraud, the credit union is the one who pays to cover that fraud.
Right.
When you have to issue a card, they have to you lose your card, need a new card, the credit union pays. When you need to call customer service, the credit union has employees there to take your call and help you out. It costs money. And if you take that interchange revenue away, the credit union is going to have to find another way to cover it. What that means is that credit card is probably no longer going to be free. A lot of credit unions have free checking accounts. They will no longer be free because we have to find a way to plug that hole. So this whole bill is a cost shifting from Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart to credit unions and their members. And it's going to end up harming our members because our members come to expect and enjoy the many benefits of being a credit union. And those benefits come from fee revenue that we receive from interchange. And so if we have to also not start paying for that fraud, we're going to have to raise fees. We're going to have to find some way to take it out of our members. And that's not fair to our members. But I can't blame the big box retailers. They're trying to go to Wall Street and say, look, we made more money. And the great thing is, and I've been a bit long-winded, we actually have proof. This is what I'm telling you is exactly what's going to happen. And then Dodd-Frank Act, the merchants succeeded. There's interchange on credit cards, there's interchange on debit cards. In the Dodd-Frank Act, the merchants succeeded in getting Congress to step in, like they're trying to do here, and shift that cost from retailers into credit unions and to banks. And the retailers at the time, this was back in 2010, they said, this is a big cost. It's costing consumers every day because merchants have to increase prices to cover interchange. If you just pass this debit interchange cap, it'll lower costs for consumers. Well, Congress did that in the Dodd-Frank Act, called the Durbin Amendment. And what happened? Prices didn't drop one step for consumers. In fact, at a bunch of retailers, prices actually went up. But what we did see is retailers saved $100 billion over 10 years.
Wow.
And none of that went to consumers. What happened was, as I just said, a lot of banks had to drop free checking accounts. Credit unions have managed, because we're not for profit, haven't seen as bad of much of a decline in free checking, but a lot of banks, free checking disappeared. You used to get rewards on your debit cards. Those went away. And all that happened was it went straight to the bottom line of retailers. And if you do that for debit interchange or credit card interchange, it's going to be the continuation of the same thing. Congress is going to step in. It's going to put its finger on the scale in a competitive market. And the loser will be average everyday Americans who will have to pay more for basic financial services. And the winner is going to be big box retailers. You're going to see hundreds of $billions added to their bottom line. And so that's what we're out there fighting for. When you talk about advocacy, this is the nuts and bolts of advocacy right there. We're trying to step in and help our members and protect them from retailers trying to use Congress to help their bottom line.
Well, when folks are especially learning about this, and I know NAFCU has been sharing a lot about the ways that this piece of legislation is so harmful, just like you just did, what can folks really do to get involved and make their voice heard?
That's a great question. And we really need people to make their voice heard. It's good old-fashioned advocacy, good old-fashioned grassroots. When you have a chance, you can go to NAFCU's website, you can talk to your credit union. There's a bunch of places where you can go to find information about this. Write your congressman, write your senator, reach out and talk to them. Let them know. If you're a credit union executive or credit union professional, reach out to your member of Congress. You can do it directly. You can do it through NAFCU, NAFCU.org. We have a grassroots website where we can give you the means to send a letter to your congressman, send a letter to your senator. We have draft letters. If you're not sure what you want to say, we have kind of some templates you can use, some suggested wording. And let them know that this is important to credit unions. Let them know that it's not just about credit unions, it's about our members. It's about average, everyday Main Street Americans. Because an interesting fact about this is really this is a battle between banks and retailers. And the big box retailers are the ones who really benefit. But they've kind of, I hate to say duped, but they kind of duped the small merchants into thinking somehow this is going to help them too. And when you put in your average everyday gas station, your average everyday convenience store, your 7-Elevens, your mom and pop grocery store, credit unions and banks, we're all in this together. We're outnumbered about 1,000 to 1. For every financial institution out there, there's 1,000 retailers. And so we need everyone out there on our side of this issue, everyone out there fighting to have a fair payment system that benefits everybody, where the people who get the most benefit pay the most. We need all of them to speak up and make their voice heard, because there's a lot of people on the other side, a lot of people who are going to try to use the government to interfere in a private market to help their bottom line. And so we need your voices heard. We need people to talk to their senators. We need people to talk to their congressmen. When they're back in the district, you see them at a county fair, see them somewhere you have a chance to talk to them, go tell them about this. And a lot of times they'll have a staffer with them. Make sure you talk to that staffer and let them know, because that's The members of Congress have a bunch of people coming at them, and the staff usually the person who makes sure the rubber hits the road. Let them know. Get an appointment in their district. A lot of members of Congress will meet with you in their district. Go to their office and talk with them. They need to know that there's two sides of this. If they only hear one side, that side's going to win.
Absolutely. Well, we'll be sure to link in the show notes here to NAFCU site for folks who are interested in some more resources and some more information here on the potential Credit Card Competition Act 2022. Now, I know another topic, Greg, that you're really maybe passionate about or talk about a lot is some of those bank branch closures that we've been seeing that have led to banking deserts, especially in underserved or rural areas. And so as we kind of transition the conversation here, I'm wondering, can you speak to that? And what do you see credit unions really doing to fill the gap and maybe some of the bank branch closure areas too?
It's not that I can speak to it. It's, well, I shut up talking about it because I have so much to say. It's a huge deal. It's a really, really big deal. I might feel this more passionately because I come from a small town, a little town of 1,400 people. And those are the communities being most impacted by this right now. What you're seeing is a lot of the banks, as we've had consolidation in the banking industry, we have fewer and fewer big banks dominating the banking industry. They're looking out there saying, because they actually have investors, they have shareholders they have to worry about, which I don't fault them for that. They're saying, what can I do to make my institution more profitable? And that usually means closing branches in underserved or rural communities because they're just not profitable enough. And since 2017, or can't remember the exact numbers, but in the past decade, there's been almost 10,000 bank branches closed.
Wow. In
the past 2 years, they're closing at a rate of 200 branches per month. And that's double what it was. From 2017 to 2020, it was about 95 a month. It's accelerated. It's up to 200 a month. And what happens in these communities when you close a bank branch and they have all they're left with is an ATM machine on a street corner, it has a huge economic impact on these communities. Absolutely massive. Job growth slows. Economic growth slows noticeably. Small businesses are disproportionately impacted. The average American can still probably do a lot of what they need on their phone. You can remote deposit checks now. You can check your balances. But small businesses, they need a lot of the services that a bank branch provides. If there's not one there, they have trouble getting loans. They have trouble with cash management services. And the local community suffers. You lose jobs. You lose, that bank, on the corner, they pay real estate taxes. They pay payroll taxes. They're kind of a local economic hub. And so when we see these bank branches closing, it just devastates rural communities. And not just rural, inner city communities, a lot of economically distressed areas. That bank branch is a key piece of helping that community revitalize and grow. And so credit unions, we've noticed that, and we're out there trying to fill the gap. And the great news is, I mentioned that we've had thousands of bank branches close over the past few years. The good news is credit unions have actually added branches. We're actually out there trying to fill the void. But we just can't do it fast enough. We can't add 200 credit union branches a month. It's just not feasible. But we're out there, we're trying to add branches. But because credit unions have the unique feature of a field of membership, a defined field of membership, we actually need some regulatory and legislative changes to go in and more proactively try to fill that void. Underserved areas is a huge deal. The NCUA made some small changes last year to the underserved area rules, but we really need Congress to step up and change the law in order for us to really go in and even do more to help try to replace this void, to help serve these local communities. We need Congress to change the field of membership rules to allow credit unions to go into underserved areas. There's a bill that we passed out of House Financial Services Committee, hasn't passed the House yet, hasn't been introduced in the Senate. But the really kind of just darkly cynical thing is these banks who are out there closing 200 branches a month are fighting us tooth and nail. And they're going to make it really hard to get this law passed. At the same time, they're abandoning these communities. They're saying, look, we know we bailed on those guys, but we really don't want credit unions to go serve them either. They hate us so much that they can't, they're willing to make these poor underserved communities, hold them hostage in some ways. Say, you know what? We're not going to serve them, but we don't like credit unions, so we don't want you to serve them either.
Right.
So really in our fight in Congress, you talk about advocacy. This is kind of another piece of the heart of advocacy. We're out there not just fighting for credit unions. We're out there fighting for communities that don't have a bank or even a credit union anywhere. And we're out there saying, we want to go serve them. We're not out here trying to get rich. We're just trying to give these folks a place where they can go to get a checking account and a mortgage and a car loan and a small business loan. And the banks are saying, nope, We don't have a branch there, but we don't want you either. And that's just awful. But that's kind of what we're up against. So we're out there fighting to try to get some field membership changes so that we can help underserved areas, help these communities. And it's a really big deal. And another area of that, kind of a corollary of that, is the bankers are also fighting us. We've seen not many, but 10, 15 times a year, a credit union will merge with a bank. The local bank is underperforming. You look at the banks that credit unions merge with, compared to most community banks, they're really underperforming. And to the point where the bank management says it might not be viable for us to stay here. We have to close the branch or just close the bank. And these are voluntary mergers. And there's no such thing as a credit union hostile takeover of a bank. The bank board votes on this. The credit union says, look, merge with us. We'll keep the branch open. We'll keep the employees. We'll keep everything there. Because we're not for profit, we don't have the same pressure, same demands. We can continue to operate this branch in this community. And the bankers are fighting us there too. There's a lawsuit in Tennessee right now. And the bankers said, if this merger doesn't go through, we're going to lay off a bunch of people and probably close the branch. And so the credit union's coming in trying to merge with them. And the local bankers took them to court and they're fighting it. It's unbelievable. And so we're out there trying to say, look, what's wrong with this? And this is, again, all we want is to make sure that people have a basic source of financial services. And if no one else wants to serve them, we're happy to do it. It's what we do. It's the core of what a credit union is. It's the core of who we are. And the bankers just are fighting us tooth and nail. They can't see past the spite, I guess.
Of course. Yeah, it definitely sounds like that. And I know there's another hot topic right now, too, that everybody's talking about it, which is inflation. And there are obviously some direct impacts from policymaking, from what's going on in the advocacy world to our economic situation here. But can you share your perspective and insight around what's going on with inflation right now, too, and how you maybe see credit unions positioned, just like you said, to support their members, to support staff at branches? How can they really do that in these challenging times?
Yeah, I think they're a really important part of that. Your credit union members are average everyday Americans are seeing their real income drop because of inflation. Yeah, wages are going up, but they're not going up as fast as prices. When your cost of eggs go up 30%, your cost of gas doubles, your cost of meat goes up 20, 30%. It doesn't matter that your pay went up 10%. It's not enough to close the gap. And so credit unions are really critical to helping their members manage that cash flow, manage their money so they can pay their bills. The credit union is a really core part of helping Main Street Americans figure out a way to stretch their dollar further. I'm really proud of our credit unions. They do a lot of financial education, a lot of financial counseling, a lot of budgeting. And we also help their members if you need short-term loans. I mean, we've seen it happen at our credit unions lately. A unique product that most credit unions have, a lot of banks don't, is your kind of short-term unsecured loan, signature loans, or helping people refinance their car loans. Any number of ways that we can help our members stay on their feet and stretch their dollar further. It's what we do. And for a lot of our members, we can look at them and say, they can come to us and say, I'm having trouble managing these payments. I'm having trouble managing my daily bills. What can I do? And we'll work with them. We'll find a way to restructure their loans, find a way to do something so that they can get through this rough patch. And hopefully things will come back on the other end. Inflation slows down. Their pay goes up. They can find a new job. This job market's really strong. And credit unions are such a key part to helping their members stay on their feet and stay afloat until we can get kind of through this high inflationary environment until things can stabilize for them. And I think that's really important because we're really proud of the fact that, and you look at the surveys and they show it, we're not a banker. We're not out there trying to, treat our customers as a piggy bank. We don't need to make money off of them. We just need them to stay healthy, stay financially strong, and we'll be fine because we're not for profit and cooperatively owned. So I think our members feel more comfortable coming in and talking with us. It's a little less of that scare factor of, when the banker calls, you're behind on your loans. You're like, oh, but it's really true. If you ever talk to someone, I talked about, my previous advocacy life, one of the companies I worked for is a really good mortgage servicing company. And they said their biggest problem, they had all kinds of tools out there, especially during the pandemic, for loan workouts, loan modifications, and more, payment moratoriums. Their biggest problem was getting people to answer the phone. People avoided them, even though they were calling to try to help them. People kind of get ashamed of being behind on their loans. They get scared. Oh no, they're going to take my house away. They're going to take my car away. So getting someone to actually go talk to you We don't want to take people's cars. We don't kick people out of their houses. We want to help them stay. But step one, they have to talk to us. And I think people are a little more willing to go talk to their credit union because we're not out there trying to make money off of them. They know that we're part of their family. We're part of their community.
That is so true. So true. Well, as we sort of look to the future, hopefully inflation won't be an issue at some point in the future, and I'm sure it'll come back around. But what new trends do you see emerging in financial services overall? And when NAFCU is really looking at the road ahead, what is your focus for the future?
I think we've seen a lot of we've gotten some small previews of the future. Financial services is evolving quickly. It's kind of taken a bit of a beating recently, but you got to imagine that digital assets, be it, the crypto, whatever, who knows how it's going to shape up. That's here to stay, and it's the key part of it. So we're working hard at NAFCU to ensure that credit unions can be part of that. So we can offer that service to our members. We can help them grow. We can help them add this responsibly to their financial portfolio. We worked with the NCUA to get guidance to allow credit unions to partner with good, responsible third parties to offer digital assets to our members. We're also, finding ways to embrace things like blockchain to, create new innovative financial products. So I think that's a key part of it. And I think the other thing is instant payments. People are always going to assume with Venmo and Zelle that it's here already, but it's really not yet. Those are kind of trying to bend existing systems that aren't quite instant, make them seem instant, but we're going to see more and more with real-time payments. The Federal Reserve's rolling out its Fed Now system next year to really make real-time payments something that's an embedded part of every financial institution. And the growing trend to online and digital is something that's going to be there. And so we see that, and we're trying to find ways to make sure that credit unions are part of that. And whatever happens in that system, the credit unions have the ability to offer that to their members. If we have to stay relevant, members expect credit unions to offer the same suite of services that you find anywhere else, and we believe that, and we're going to keep working towards that. So I think that's something that we're working on, and that's really where we're looking at is what can we do to make sure that the regulatory environment is conducive to doing this in a safe, responsible manner. And I think the other big thing, and it's coming to a head, you've seen that amongst the regulators, you've seen it in the legislative environment, is this growing trend towards, I don't know how to phrase it, but where a lot of people's interaction with financial services providers is through unregulated fintechs. Your friend tells you about this cool new app that you download on the phone, right? And is, hey, download this app and you can use this to pay for X, Y, and Z. Well, it's an unregulated company that you've now given either all your bank account information to, all your credit card account information to, and they kind of place themselves as the intermediary between you and your credit union and use this cool app. It's in the app store. It must be safe, right? And you give them all your information. You don't know what they're doing with that data. You don't know what if you use that app to pay for something and it ends up being fraudulent. Is there even a company there? Is there a person to answer the phone if you want to call that app provider and complain about it? You don't know. So you end up going to your credit union. And so you create this weird world where credit unions and banks also, it's all financial institutions, are kind of on the hook for payment providers out there who aren't regulated for safety and soundness, don't have the customer service support, don't have the data security safeguards that credit unions do. And so I think that's the next other big discussion. And it becomes more true as you move into the real-time payments world. And so we're spending a lot of time trying to make sure that, we don't want to stifle innovation. We think the fintech world has brought some amazing technologies, some really great services. Credit unions partner with some fintechs. But there's also a lot of them out there that have some really questionable practices. So try to ensure that our members are protected when they use these apps and that there's some sort of safety and soundness and also a level playing field. We have to hold capital. We're examined every year. We have to comply with all these regulations that cost a lot of money, a lot of time. The average credit union has a huge number of employees dedicated to filling out government paperwork and compliance. And this fintech can pop up overnight in some office suite in Silicon Valley, create an app, toss it on the app. I'm scared. And then what? They don't have any of those costs. They don't have any of the overhead. They also don't have the responsibility and obligations to their customers that credit unions do to their members. So try to ensure that we can find a middle road where we don't stifle innovation. We don't try to take away all these cool new products, but we do make sure that it's a level playing field and that consumers that use these fintechs are protected.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of the really big discussion we're having. I think that discussion, how that plays out, and it's all tied together with real-time payments, all tied together with blockchain and crypto. They're all kind of different parts of the same discussion about the evolution of financial services. And that's the NAFCU spend a lot of time on the regulatory side, on the legislative side, on the economic research side with that.
Well, it sounds like, and there are so many different things that credit unions are working on and working through, but it sounds like NAFCU is really at the heart of making sure that advocacy work is being done on behalf of credit unions. So it's so cool to hear all of the work that you guys are doing, all the things you're thinking that are coming up in the roadmap. And as we wrap up the show, I always like to have some fun with our guests and ask you some rapid fire questions to let our listeners get to know you better. So if you are ready, I will just jump right in here.
Fire away.
All right. What is a recent purchase you didn't know you needed that's become something you can't live without?
Oh, air fryer. Man, I held out on the air fryer thing forever. I was like, how's it any different than a microwave, right? But once you actually reheat French fries in that air fryer, oh man, you get the difference. And so many things. Like I had kids, they won't eat chicken nuggets now unless they're made in the air fryer. They can tell if I microwave them. They're like, no, Dad, this isn't it. No, we got to put these in the air fryer. So we love the air fryer. It's such a game changer.
I do not have an air fryer, but I've been having this argument back and forth. Oh, it's just another oven, but you're selling me on it.
Oh, it is so much better. A, it's a lot faster. B, it just makes things crispier. You got to change your life. Get on board. Join the cult.
Air fryer. I love it. Well, Greg, when you hear the word success, who's that first person that comes to mind for you and why?
That's easy. Tom Brady. Partly because I'm a big Michigan football fan and he graduated from the University of Michigan, but also he literally has redefined how you describe success in the NFL. Think about it. He has played longer than anyone else. He's won more than anyone else. He has single-handedly redefined the benchmark for what is a successful quarterback in the NFL. I mean, to the point now where everyone says that person is the next Tom Brady. He is the standard to which you hold everyone to. And he's done it professionally. He's been amazing at it. So, I mean, he is just the definition of success. And he graduated from the University of Michigan, which is great. Yeah.
I love that. All right. A random question for you. What are you listening to most right now? Podcast, music?
That's also an easy one. And it kind of goes back to my previous thing. It started to pick up on me. College football podcasts. There's not enough college football podcasts out there. And we're back in the season. I'm so excited.
Yep.
When I go walk my dog at night, I download several podcasts. And my dog, I think he's starting to get exhausted because we just keep walking because I keep listening to more podcasts. He's done about half hour before I am.
You're like, I have this one more to finish. I have to go.
Exactly. Because once I get back in the house, I got to do all this stuff with the kids in the house and all that. So that's like my escape. It's like taking the dog for a walk. And then, an hour and a half later, I come back home.
That is amazing. All right. Any books that you have gifted or you think just everyone should read?
I have not gifted any books. I guess I'm not a really great person in that sense that I gift books. What should everyone read right now? The books that I read, I'm a sci-fi fantasy nerd. So usually people kind of, when I say what I'm reading, people roll their eyes and they're like, oh, what a dork. I actually just started because of the Amazon has this Rings of Power series came out. I went back and just literally in the middle of rereading all the Tolkien books. So going back from the Silmarillion through the Hobbit to the Lord of the Rings. So that's what I'm doing. And you know what? He's such a gifted author. I'd tell everyone to go read J.R. Tolkien. One of the greatest authors ever. Absolutely amazing.
All right. Absolutely. Well, we're going to link to those books here in the show notes. So if anybody wants to pick them up, be able to get that link there. Let's say the calendar is empty. What are you doing to unwind outside of work? Maybe apart from the college football podcast, dog walks.
That's easy. Hunting. I love hunting. I grew up hunting. If I have the time and I have nothing else to do, I would go out and just walk. Nothing beats going out, walking the woods with a dog and trying to hunt birds. It's the best thing in the world. So I could do that all day, every day and be a happy, happy man. If I ever win the lotto, I'm going to, walk out of NAFCU, put a sign on the door that says gone hunting and you won't see me again.
Amazing. Well, we're going to link to everything that we talked about today in the show notes. But Greg, my last question for you is, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share, final asks of our listeners today?
Absolutely. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about a little bit before. I love advocacy. I love going out and speaking on behalf of credit unions. I love going to Capitol Hill and the regulators. But, I'm a lobbyist. And it's, at some point, everyone's like, oh, he's a lobbyist. The best way, what makes my job the easiest is when I have my credit unions get engaged. And so my request to all of your listeners is get engaged. Talk to your members of Congress, write letters to the regulators, work through your trade associations. Here at NAFCU, we have great, regulatory affairs committees. We have legislative affairs committees. Join your trade associations committees. Give us your voice. It's so much easier for us to do our job when we hear from you. We can think we know what really matters to credit unions. We actually want to hear from you what matters to you. When there's a regulation, when there's a bill, your feedback and your insights actually help us write comment letters and go to members of Congress and really speak on your behalf. And then when you actually go do it yourself, you can say, it's not just me. Look, here's all these credit unions that wrote these letters. Here's all these credit unions that contacted you. It makes our voice so much louder and so much more powerful. So my ask will always be get engaged and stay engaged. And there's, like I just said, there's so many different ways you can get engaged. You don't have to go talk to a member of Congress yourself, but go spend time with your trade association. Spend time with, Ann Petras, our head of regulatory, Brad Thaler, head of legislative. Give them your time, give them your feedback, give them your voice, because then they are actually speaking on your behalf and they know what matters to you. So we can tell members of Congress, you'd be surprised. You go to lunch or dinner with a member of Congress, you talk to them, they'll say, hey, what's important to credit unions right now? And when you tell us, we can actually relay that. And so that's what my one ask is, please just get engaged and stay engaged because it matters.
Well, what a perfect way to wrap up this show. Get engaged, stay engaged. Such a good message for credit unions. We're going to link to your contact information, that of your team at NAFCU too, for anybody who does want to get in touch and stay engaged with you all. Thank you so much for being on the show. I know I learned quite a bit from you, and I'm hoping all of our listeners will as well. So stay well, Greg, and thanks to everybody today for tuning into the CUInsight Network podcast. We'll be back again next time.
Thanks for having me on your show. Talk to you later.